In the last 40 years or so, human rights has become a worldwide household expression. It is certainly one of the dominant ideas of public ethics of our time. In the first classes of this course of Introduction to Human Rights, it is then necessary to deal with basic notions of ethics, particularly public ethics, or, if you wish, political ethics. In this very first class, we will touch on 4 points: the world of norms, the meaning of morals versus ethics, the concept of normative systems, and different connotations of legal systems. Ethics and law are two disciplines which do not concern themselves with aspects of what actually exists, has existed, or may come to be. Physics, biology, history, economics, or psychology, among many other disciplines, do so. Ethics and law deal with what ought to be. In other words, they deal with what is or should be considered right, just, fair, or good. This is the world of what is called prescriptive norms, that is, rules which prescribe what must be done, what is permitted, and what is prohibited. The realm of what actually is and the realm of what ought to be are logically disconnected. For instance, one may not conclude that because stealing is morally and legally prohibited, it does not happen. Conversely, it cannot be concluded either that because stealing does occur in practice, it is morally or legally acceptable. However, although the realm of what ought to be is not logically connected with reality, it does pull it to some extent toward what is considered desirable in the manner of a gravitational force. The clearer and the more enforceable the ethical or legal norm, the greater the gravitational attraction it may exert over reality. Human fallibility predicts, however, that there will always be a lesser or greater measure of discrepancy between what actually is and what is deemed as just, fair, or good. But this actually suggests that we as human beings have a choice of doing the right thing, and therefore we are free. An apple, say Newton's apple, could not have ever been free when falling down inevitably to the ground. Morals and ethics do not mean exactly the same, although they tend to be used as synonyms, and that is basically okay. Morals is about formulating prescriptive norms based on what is being considered right or wrong, or ultimately good or bad. Morals is also about passing moral judgments on actions on the basis of such norms. Ethics instead is about studying the field of morals. Drawing a parallel with the realm of the law, the expert in morals would be equivalent to the lawmaker or the judge, in that he or she makes norms or applies them, whereas the expert in ethics would be equivalent to the jurist, in that he or she studies such activities and their product. In other words, while morals is what happens in the field, ethics is the observation and appraisal of such actions from the benches. Having clarified that distinction from an academic standpoint, let us repeat that we accept that morals and ethics are in practice used as the same. The elementary unit in the normative world is the norm, much as in the biological field is the cell, and in the physical one, the atom. Many elements may be identified within the norm, cell, or atom, but they constitute the basic brick to build more complex structures within their respective realms. Norms form normative systems, that is, sets of norms on a given subject or addressed to a given group. Normative systems are intended to protect or promote certain values within a society or internationally. These values may be organized hierarchically, with a general all-encompassing value at the top and more specific ones down the ladder. For instance, concerning the human rights normative system, it may be said that at the peak one finds the overall value of human dignity. On a more specific plane, there are categories of values such as civil liberties. And in an even more specific level, There are rights such as the freedom of speech, the freedom of movement, or the freedom of association. CUSP values or norms may be valid for all situations, but at a more specific level, they may acquire particular connotations depending on the characteristics of any given field. For instance, the norm "to everyone his or her due" changes colors regarding family relations, "to everyone according his or her necessity," schooling, "to everyone according to his or her merit," or corporations, "to everyone according to his or her control of corporate capital." This does not mean that some specific norms are weaker. It just means that they are tailored to the characteristics of the field in question. Legal systems are, of course, normative in character. However, the enforcement of their norms at the national level is backed up by the monopoly of force enjoyed by the state. Moral systems do not have such peremptory enforcement. Legal systems may be thought of more narrowly or more broadly. In a narrow sense, one may speak of the criminal code or the labor code or even the whole body of laws, including the constitution of a given country. In a broader sense, one may add the actual functioning of the institutions and mechanisms that are meant to make laws and to apply the laws already passed. Finally, in the broadest possible connotation, legal systems would include also the social and political processes which may lead to particular interests or values to be enshrined in new laws and institutions. For instance, it took many decades of social and political activism and much intellectual debate to gain the right to vote for women worldwide. This broadest connotation of legal systems also includes those processes which consist in seeking alternative ways to enforce laws and to protect rights when the institutions charged with doing so have ceased to function effectively. For instance, under a dictatorial government with no independent judiciary, people have often come up with imaginative ways to denounce human rights violations and to protect victims. Traditionally, this broadest connotation has been regarded as the terrain of social activism, politics, or ethics, not of the law. However, in times of rapid social and technological change, such as the present times, many new social demands come to the fore, and much pressure is exerted for them to be taken in by new laws. Today, there is a need for norms to regulate many technological, environmental, and human challenges. The response of formal lawmaking mechanisms is generally slow to come and insufficient. Therefore, the so-called soft power of citizen activism flexes its muscles and puts pressure on governments to act. We have a clear example of this in the citizens' protests which erupted worldwide in 2011 to denounce gross social and economic inequality and to demand better social policies. Some of them go on until today. In sum, the narrow connotation of normative systems may be said to amount to the rules of the game. The broader connotation of normative systems would be equivalent to the practice of the game, and the broadest connotation may be compared to the demands of the players to modify or improve the rules of the game in light of the shortcomings discovered when playing it. Please visit mooc-chile.com and we invite you to watch the next lesson of this human rights course.